Hey everybody, this is Evan Littlejohn doing my book presentation for our class. It is Angela Duckworth's Grit, The Power of Passion and Perseverance. So she has studied the successful people out there in the world, and she wrote this book. It's cut into three different parts. The first part being about what is grit, how it compares to talent, how it compares to genetics, and what makes someone successful when it comes to grit. The next part is how you develop grit from the inside out with different methods for habits and discipline and that kind of thing. And then the third part is growing from the outside in, surrounding yourself with different influences to help you succeed and develop that grit. And then she also writes a conclusion in that part too for the whole book. So the first question you're probably going to ask is, what is the message of this book? So while some people contribute success to things such as IQ or talent, Angela's actually gone in and tried to show there's research to prove that grit is actually a big component of that as well. And it's actually something that's been um, neglected when it comes to success stories. Sometimes, you'll meet people and you'll say, oh, they're too much, too talented. I could never do what they do. Or they just have something in their genes that makes them good at playing that instrument or whatever it is, or good at running. And Angela's argument against that is actually that grit, determination, is an important factor in success as well. And she offers anecdotal evidence, she offers research to back that up. Um, so, what is grit? Well, it's the way she describes it, and I'll paraphrase, is that grit is the meeting of passion and determination put together. And it's basically your perseverance in the face of struggle. It's what will make you keep going at something no matter how long it takes, no matter how hard it gets, because you want to succeed. And she argues that that is very important, a key detail in success. It's not about talent so much, it's not about genetics as much. Those things do play into your success, but it's also your grittiness of how good you are at keeping up with the challenge and keep going. So, some things that I think about her message is that, for one, grit is important to success. I agree with her. I agree that there are people out there that are successful, and the only way they were able to get where they're at is through perseverance. They might have been smart, they might have been talented, or they could have just been really hard workers. But the truth is that they all will say that are just they just persevered. And you'll see that with multiple people in her book that she writes about. And then I also wanted to say that point two, that I agree with her that making practice a habit is key to success. There's other people who are in this type of realm of writing and presenting about successful people, and they agree that what you need to do to be successful is to develop habits around your life that are practicing your grittiness, to practice your challenges and to grow and plan your time around those challenges instead of shrinking away from them. You get up in the morning, you say, okay, there's a new challenge and I'm going to meet that. And then I also agreed with her that she alludes to and explains that there's a lot of young people out there who struggle to find their passion. She talks about how developing passion is one of the key ways to develop grit within yourself. And she says that a lot of younger people, they have so many interests that they can't choose just one, and they struggle with finding what is it that drives them. And she says that what you need to do is settle down and pick one thing and try to develop it and work at it. That your passion isn't just something that leaps out to you in an epiphany, that it's something that comes with subtle movements towards it, and that you develop it through practice and dedication. And then eventually you get skilled in it, and then you dive deeper and deeper. And each time you dive deeper, you're going to reach more novelty, which is really what you're after, which is why a lot of people, they switch from topic to topic to get interested in, like a hobby, but they don't sit there and just stew in it. They don't just sit there and think about it and work at it, because they're searching for novelty. They're not actually searching for purpose. And so she argues that what you really need to do is to sit there and try to work at that as hard as you can. So I didn't have very many disagreements with Angela. I actually had just one. And one of them is that she brings up a lot of stories early in the book about successful people. Like there's this one person named Scott she brings up, and he was held back in school, and the people around him kept saying that he had a learning disability and should have been held back and wasn't going to be doing very good and successful. And so he stayed there for a very long time in that area. And then one day he just decided to start playing an instrument because someone inspired him to try something different. And he worked at it and worked at it and worked at it and got really good. And then he used that to get into university of his choice, because he couldn't get in there through academics alone, because his academic record wasn't up to their standard. But through playing music, he was able to get into the university and then switch tracks over to the program that he wanted in the first place. And I thought that was a cool story. But the problem is that I think she doesn't focus on the fact that he had the opportunity to play the instrument already, that was already something in his life that he could have done. And some people, they don't have the time or resources to do that. They don't have people encouraging them to do that. And later in the book, when she talks about developing grit from with your environment, from outside of yourself, she does talk about parenting and mentors and finding people who will encourage you and that kind of thing. And she does tackle that topic later in the book, but not up front. And I think that that's kind of a downfall of the book. Um, Overall, the stuff I agreed with really outweighs that. I think there's a lot of good in the book. I think that I agree with those points I said previously because they made sense. Um, that she brought up good research. She brought up good practical examples of what she's talking about. So a little bit more of what I think about the book. I think it's an easy read. I think I've compared, and while I was reading it, I would compared and contrasted what I have heard from other people. Like Darren Hardy is an example. He talks to successful businessmen and businesswomen, and he actually came across and got to the heart of what they offered him, which was developing habits in your life, much like Angela talks about, but to really work on organizing your life through making plans and that kind of thing. And I thought it was interesting that he argued more for more habits and less mindsets, um, less determination coming from within yourself. It's more of how you set up your environment. Do you make plans in the morning? Do you get up at 4 a.m.? That kind of thing. And Angela, in contrast, was more talking about, um, how do you develop that stuff, that interest in what you do, and take that interest and develop it into something more meaningful. And I thought that was kind of cool. In the end, I actually agreed with Angela more often than the other people I've heard, because she makes a lot of good points and backs up her stuff with a lot of good sources. Um, Speaking of sources, there's my sources cited, and thank you for watching. That's it.